Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Signal Shift. I'm Lana, and I've got Rocky here with me. And today, this episode is about intentional community living. This is part of our series on the future of building community and connection. Community and connection is the bedrock of culture and society. It's something that we talk about often with our signals. And in a time of growing political threats and uncertainty, strong social ties are essential infrastructure for sharing resources, for offering care and protection, for mobilizing, and for our own well-being. So I think today we'll share some signals and examples of community living and see what's in store for us today and in the future. So Rocky, what do you have for us for community living?
I love I love that we are going into I guess social and relationship capital and talking about community living. I'm curious to see what you have as well, Lana. I was like, how many different ways can you do this? So I think people might have heard of this one. This is one that I think became popular again this year. You know, a lot of these signals recently, they're not new ones. They are things that were lurking and someone even reported about it, but they never went viral. No one cared before because we didn't recognize the importance of them. And all those sort of stories are re-emerging now saying, oh, wait, this person was onto something, like, right, which is awesome. And they would have been really powerful signals, a long time ago if we had caught them then. But I'll still share the story. So in 2011, a group of four couples who had been friends for decades, really, really, really close, bought land and built property together. And I don't know, Lana, you're nodding. I think you know the story. And they built these tiny homes. Just outside of Austin in Texas. And it's called Bestie Row. I don't think that's the name they give it. I think that's the name the internet gave it. But it's called Bestie Row. And it was, this is not their primary homes, it's secondary homes. It obviously was really feasible, achievable, realistic to buy this land and build these small homes, right? And really create an idyllic kind of escape for them, where not only can they kind of get that holiday, but be together, because that was the whole point. So, the rooms themselves or their little homes are just 350 square meters. They really just one massive suite in essence, right? But what they do have is a 1,500 square foot kind of common area where they would cook together and spend time together. And so the whole point is coming together and living communally, even for short spurts of time. And I thought this was really cool. I could see myself doing something like this with friends. It felt really achievable. I think that's the point. These homes cost them 40,000 to build. I don't know what the land was. So, got to factor in that cost of the amount they paid for the land. But having said that all in, if this is the cost of doing something like this still feels a lot more achievable than ever having, gosh, forget a first property, a second property, right? If you can even have that. This seems like a great way to do it if you can have friends that you can kind of have those good arrangements and agreements with and be able to come together, right? Ever so often. It of course gives them a second income also because they rent it out on Airbnb and similar. So I think it's a really smart way of thinking about how do we how do we rejig this idea of community living, of owning more property, right, of having another income. You kind of see the best of a lot of ideas coming together here, which is why I really liked it. And I think I saw an article kind of call it a modern communal twist on the old age home, and I was like, yeah, well, old age homes, it's really cool people living together and having, that's why they're together, they need that social connection. So there is something to take from that, for all of us. Of course, these homes are also built to be energy efficient. They capture rainwater, the insulation, the way they've kind of been built with this heavy duty spray foam make sure that they insulated from the heat and the cold. So, all those things, again, coming alive in a place like this. It's energy efficient, it's communal, it makes money for them. It's all those good things. So I really loved it. And I wonder if, we're going to see more and more of this kind of thing happening and people will be inspired by this. And, it reminded me of one that also I think people might be familiar with, but if they're not, it's the company called Picasso that allows you to buy like either a quarter or an eighth of a property with other friends. Or you can basically come to them with 4 other people or 7 other people and say, I want to split. Or they might even match you up with other people, like maybe 3 of you are interested in buying, a property. Again, it's a way of having ownership, right? And I keep speaking about this theme of ownership being really important, but having ownership of a home, of land, and a way to have a slice of that, even when you can't afford the ridiculously high prices, that we have in the United States, these days. So it's still a way to kind of have that dream in a different way. Again, you gotta have those agreements with the people. It's got to be the right people for you, but a cool way to take part in the home ownership sort of economy.
Yeah, definitely. Rocky, my signal is right on with yours, and so we're thinking about the same thing, which is, yeah, community living, with your friends and with your family, and yeah, so I very, very, very similar. My signal is a company called Live Near Friends. And so that's what they do. Like kind of very similar to what you're saying with the Picasso, but facilitating friends and family living near each other and finding and buying what they call multiplayer housing. So it could be like a duplex, for example, houses with an ADU, or like an apartment cluster, like a bunch of units in the same building, or what they call a compound, a friend compound, which is like 3 or more houses on a piece of land. And so, just like you were saying, housing is scarce, it's expensive. When we are seeing, at least on the policy side, like in California, they just passed 2 new bills to make it easier to build more houses on the same plot of land. So this is the middle housing, right? Like, how do you fill in what used to be like single family houses, right? And make it denser. And so now we have the laws that enable it to happen. And so these types of companies are facilitating kind of that legal side, right? The arrangements, and that support. And so, I think that, like you're saying, it all kind of makes sense in terms of where we are today. Another example is it's uh, a 15-minute city in the US. It's called Cul-de-sac Tempe. It's the first walkable, car-free community built from scratch in the US. And so, I mean, it's pretty cool, right? They have like retail and shops, like they have a stores. They have a Korean store in cul-de-sac. So I'm all about it. It's very designed for communal living. And so they actually opened up an entire block. They opened up a full like a low apartment, like 3-story apartment building, to a community who wanted to rent the whole thing together. So 15 units, right? And so they're mostly 1-bedroom apartments, but it's cute. Like, it has balconies, it has a little courtyard. And so they said they would provide a discount if a group wanted to come in and rent the entire or the bulk of the apartments for a minimum 6-month lease. And so I love just like the intersection of this, right? The 15-minute walkable, right, car-free community, and this idea that like you can come with like a bunch of your people, right, and rent an entire unit and try it out, and live there, for 6 months to a year. So of course you'd need the flexibility, the folks who can do that. Want to do that, but at least who want to try. And so, I think like for us, like we were recruited to Portland by a group of friends, and we want to recruit more people to move to Portland. And so I'm all about this idea.
Oh, I love it. I was just thinking, we're coming out of kind of future careers and some of the heaviness of talking about the topics there and, work and then kind of the side of life feels so hopeful now. And, like, wow, like we're getting back to, I think, values that we definitely lost for a little bit as a society and now recognize the importance of those simple things like living amongst people that, you care for, being close to them, and walkable towns. Lana, I love that. So I've heard of that place. Yeah, it's exciting. And I hope we just see more and more of that. Every time, like, they do something with another park here or open up another bike lane in like my town, I get extremely excited. I'm like, yeah, we're just gonna be biking and walking, which yeah, I love to do. So I love that.
For sure. Do you have another signal in mind related to community living?
Yeah. I had and so I think my first one, Bestie Row, was like this intimate, very achievable idea. It was awesome and something that felt kind of in my hands. And then I thought, okay, what is there on a bigger scale? Like somewhere where if I didn't have that or I didn't want to set that up, I could plug into, but it's still the kind of community I wanted to, live in. And definitely the walkable one you mentioned, something like that, Lana. And so there's actually a place and this is really interesting, and I loved this. Um, I don't, I love the idea of it. I don't know how it's gonna be implemented or become real. But it's also a massive kind of community development in California as well. I think like 80 miles from Los Angeles. The town has about 100,000 plus residents right now. It's 80 miles from Los Angeles, and they're building this community development. And yeah, it's the intent is that what they're trying to do is have kindness as a priority. And so their whole ethos and their core like tenant and value is kindness, to the extent that when you move in, you are kind of signing a kindness pledge that it's included with your community documents, right? And the whole everything is designed with that in mind. And it's exactly what we're talking about. It's taking us back to the values of, my neighbor should feel super comfortable to come and ask me for help and get the help. And I should be super comfortable to do the same. And not only should I be comfortable to ask for help, it should become like a norm. Like we know that we have to watch out for each other. That's the kind of community this is. And that's what you're going to have to partake in to live here, and either, you want that. And if you can't do that, then it's not for you. So yeah, and it's going to be, there's going to be things like a lot of focus on like different giving initiatives, like, oh, this week we hosting this charity thing or that charity, because it's a massive sort of community development, right? It's 9,000 plus acres, and it's going to have 15,000 single family homes in time. Over like the next 20 years. That's the intent. But they're already starting sales this year, I believe. And again, it's reasonable based on our market prices. So it's like 400,000 up into 700,000 and, probably a little bit above as well. But the whole point is that even the staff and everybody's going to model these acts of kindness. It's going to be in everything from like supporting local charities to having all kinds of like meal trains for neighbors and, to co-create this. And that's like the core thing that they want. They want to literally change our values and have this kind of almost a social experiment in bringing people together and saying, I think people want to live like this. I think people want to be this way, but we need to model it. And there'll be certain expectations, like when you have a new neighbor, you sign up that you will be a community leader who will welcome your new neighbors. So those sorts of things become kind of a norm. And yeah, they've setting up all kinds of spaces where people can come together, not just not just the gym or the clubhouse, that sort of stuff, but also, Lana, to your point, really walkable. There's going to be parks, there's going to be a lake, lots of spaces. Like they're designing it really intentionally where people can come together and just be and talk and mingle and meet each other. So it's not designed where it's like I get in my car, I drive, I come back, and I don't see anybody else. Like you will be forced to participate in engagement through the design of, this development as well. So it's called Silverwood. Yeah, it's in California. And I really like the ethos of it. I think we're going to see more communities like this. I know we see these high-end, gym, sauna, wellness kind of things that are taking off a lot, right? And they're becoming very popular with the community developments and apartments. But I think what is missing is what these guys are doing, which is saying, it's not about that. It's about this connection and a value and how people feel living in a place, and how do we bring that back? And if they can achieve that, that'll be amazing.
Wow, I was on the edge of my seat because I was wondering what the name was. And so we definitely want to look into that. So you said it's Silverwood. I'm really curious about this because, I think one of the things about having guidelines and values is that they also need to be enforced in a way, right? That's how we protect people, by enforcing the guideline. And so I would love to see how they model and hold up these values of kindness. We really need it, and especially this very polarizing environment that we're in, really looking for ways to uh, kind of split us up. And so I love this idea of the kindness, but I'm also very curious about how they'll, reinforce something that is, I think something that we need more of, and especially like in our digital world, and we've talked about that, like people are quite unkind, and so probably need some exercises on how to live this lifestyle. So
Kind
interesting.
way to put it, Lana. I think they're a lot more than unkind.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, mine is actually, again, like really similar to yours. It's a similar flavor of that. When you're talking about sort of values-based co-living, mine is co-living organized around brands or even creators, content creators. And so I found this really interesting post. This guy, his name's Jackson Steger, and he was a contestant on the Beast Games. And so this was a reality show created by the YouTuber Mr. Beast. It was on Netflix, I think. 500 people to win $5 million. I didn't watch it, but as part of this, what I understand is that they created Beast City. And so he said, Jimmy Donaldson, who's Mr. Beast, he says, like in the trailer, that they spent over $15 million to build a city from scratch. It's on an airfield outside of Toronto. And it had like a 5-story tower, a cafe, a sports facility, had living quarters on the edges, and like a communal quad in the middle. And all the contestants lived there, right? And all the people, I assume, affiliated with the show. But this person who was a contestant and got, I guess, pretty far, said that, the people who lived in Beast City, like they became fast friends because they all shared an appreciation for Mr. Beast. And, they opted into this experience. And, he was like theorizing or speculating that he or others, they would pay to live there, like in a creator themed community. And so, sharing amenities and themed experiences because they already have something in common. And so I thought this was like a pretty interesting idea. And we're really living in an age of the super fans, right? And so maybe if you really love something or someone or some uh concept like that, you would live with others who share that thing in common with you. And so I tried to think about brands that might have something like this, and so I did find one, which is Disney World. And so they do have a really high-end development within Disney World called Golden Oak. And homes range from $9 million to about $15 million. Um, and these homes are like decked out thematically by, different Disney movies. And so, the community, you have to pay, in addition to the home, you have to pay for $19,000 per year for the membership to the community itself. It's staffed by Disney cast members. You get a platinum pass to the park. You get door-to-door service from your home to the park. So there's all these amenities that are connected to, this very exclusive, but, very Disney themed way of living. And so, I guess, just kind of thinking about that, like kind of, what you were saying, like co-living around values, but it's an interesting way of how values are either represented by like a content creator, right, or by a brand, and that folks believe in that enough that they would want to kind of live in that place. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, totally. I love that. I didn't kind of make that link between values personified in a brand or a person, right? And like for me, like Disney is like the side of it where it's like, yeah, no. Right. I mean, but you're right? They have these really elite communities. Even in Hawaii, like I think they have a Disney hotel, and like people will choose to go to Hawaii, but have a Disney experience in Hawaii, right? Or I think they've been building another community like here, right? So it's yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, people buy into that. I can imagine people doing the same thing for like Harry Potter or worlds like that, right? And how about this one? This one I'd be interested in. I was just thinking about this while you were speaking, Lana, but how about something that's like K-drama? I was like, ooh, I might like that. I'm like, my niece will like that. As ridiculous as it sounds, but it's like, I think people would be interested in that, right? And like living in these worlds that emulate that kind of thing. So I think there's definitely something there. I will say, and even when you said creator, I was like, really? But then I thought about like certain wellness influences or
Mhm.
yoga like, I was like, oh, but if it's yoga or like whole foods, like I'm open to it suddenly, right? So it's all about the values, like you said. Like it can be so varied. It all depends on who you gravitate towards because of the values. So I think that's super interesting.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think like when we say creator, like it has a certain connotation, but I think you're right. Like it does. I mean, you can probably think about people who you admire or like um follow or believe in, and that brings like a different like feeling or reaction. So that's right. Um yeah, so this was a fun one, to kick off our theme of social and relational capital and how to build that, and thinking about how to build a community and live in intentional community. So thanks so much for joining us for this episode. And as always, check out our website. It's horizonshiftlab.com. So thanks so much and see you next time.